Hey friends, welcome to our Midweek Moment. Pastor Nicole here. So glad you joined us. Well, if you watched the sermon or you were in person this weekend, you know that we talked about how to be a good sport. Our youth chose the topic this weekend as it was Youth Sunday, and they helped lead the service in person. And they wanted to hear a sermon about what does it mean to be a good sport or to have good sportsmanship. And so we talked about that. We interviewed Coach Gene Jones, who has 50 plus years of coaching experience as a cross country coach. And he had some really great words to share. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to that sermon, you can find it online, and Gene's interview is a part of that. I wanted to kind of revisit the scripture that we talked about this weekend. We talked about Philippians 2, 1 through 11. And in that passage of scripture, Paul is talking about how we can be in community with one another and the steps that we should take in order to do that. And really what he's talking about is how to be a good sport, right? Like how to relate well to people, how to get through hard things with people, all of the things that are required in sportsmanship and really just in life. So Paul is writing that letter to a church, helping them think through how to be in community with one another. And I really love how he talks about it. So if you get a chance, go back and read that again this week sometime. Philippians 2 verses 1 through 11 has some really great advice on how we can live our lives like Christ. In fact, that's the whole second half of that scripture is talking about how we can imitate Christ in our lives. And it's really sort of heavy to think about because it's a big responsibility and it's not easy work, but it's what we're called to do as Christians. And I think as Christians, we get that, right? Like we know we're supposed to be imitating Christ. We know we're supposed to live our lives like Jesus. Sometimes I think though, it kind of gets like stuck in our minds as like, yes, that's something we're supposed to do, but we forget to maybe put it into practice in practical ways. So like we forget to set like a goal or to think in advance of like, okay, how can I be like Jesus today? What is one thing I could do today that would help me be more like Jesus, that would help me imitate Christ, that would help me share God's love in the world? I think, as we're living our lives, things just, get moving along and we're busy and we get drawn here and there and we know we're supposed to be like Christ. And sometimes those moments present themselves to us where we can be like Christ. But I wonder if it might be helpful for us to every day think like, okay, today I'm going to do this so that I can be more like Christ. Like today I'm going to focus on being more humble, or today I'm going to focus on being in unity with my neighbor, or today I'm going to focus on loving this person really well. If we can set those practical goals for ourselves, I think it will go a long way in helping us become more and more like Jesus. So instead of it being like we are supposed to be like Christ, we can be like, I am more like Christ because I did this today. So that's my challenge to you this week, is to just think through what is one thing I can do this week that will help me to be more like Jesus. So being intentional in our actions to be more like Christ, being intentional in our thoughts, intentional in our planning, so that we are taking steps forward in how we are becoming more like Christ. Not just yes, I want to be like Jesus, but taking practical steps so that we can become more like Jesus. And I think the more we practice that and the more we're intentional about it, the more it becomes a part of our life and it just comes about a little easier. So that's what I want you to think about this week. How can I practically practice being like Jesus this week? And go back and read that passage in Philippians 2 verses 1 through 11. It'll give you some ideas. I hope you'll join us this weekend. We have some exciting things happening in person. We have a baptism and a liturgical dance that's going to be happening in person. but also you can join us online for a great sermon about the dance of life. Like, how do we dance through life, dance through in our relationship with God? It's going to be really, really interesting. So join us for that in person or online. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Go and be like Jesus.